Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to My Little Pony Make Your Mark, Episode 7. So you're going to notice in the reaction that I have downloaded the episode here, and the next one's going to be downloaded as well, instead of just doing it off Netflix. There's not really a strong reason for that, because Netflix has been working okay lately, but one thing you may have noticed in other ones is that when I've recorded it off Netflix, there's been some maybe some moments where it's lagged a tiny bit or whatnot. At least I've noticed that in terms of what it shows on the OBS. So I just decided to finally get around to downloading episodes. I know when there's only 2 left, but I got around to that, and so these last 2 episodes will be done this way. Otherwise, the reactions will still be the same. The quality should still be fine. Nothing else should really be changing in that regard. So yeah, we have 2 more episodes to go here. And I'm very excited to see how this batch closes. Because last time we got a sleepover, we got Misty progressing the plans with Opaline and everything, and now we just have to see where it heads from here. We just have to see what goes on, because Zipp is very suspicious of Misty, and I don't know if this is going to continue right from where that left off, or if we're just going to skip ahead again. There is notable continuity. While most, if not all, of these episodes have been kind of episodic in general in their nature, the continuity has still stayed strong in terms of the overarching plot with Twilight's message and Opaline and Misty and various things. You'll hear in an episode they'll mention things that happened in an episode or 2 or 3 beforehand. And so there is directly mentioned and shown continuity. But they are still mostly episodic, so I don't know what to expect going forward. Again, though, we're only getting up to episode 8 of this season in this batch. So, and I haven't heard anything about when the next batch is coming. Though, I have heard that there will be multiple batches released next year. I think it was 3, I want to say. I think it was 3 batches of the series, and then a few specials as well. I might be wrong on the exact number, but there were definitely multiple batches that are going to be released next year. And I'm kind of thinking that's gotta, and if it is at least 3 batches for episodes, then that's gotta at least be more than the season, right? Because I believe there was a 24 episode or 26 episode order on the season. So if there were more than that, that means that there would probably be a season 2 starting next year too, which is very possible. I don't know how quickly they plan on getting this series out, how quickly they plan on progressing that. I don't know. But we'll see. And there's going to be multiple specials and all too, so that's fun. This series might be done in a completely different way, because as you may have noticed, Netflix is also labeling it differently. The first special was labeled as Chapter 1, and the first 8 episode batch is labeled as Chapter 2. Which is, Netflix has always labeled things weird. They do the same thing for stuff like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, even though there's no seasons for that series. They still try to label it as if there are. And I think with Netflix, they label Brotherhood's seasons in accordance with the openings. Every time a new opening comes, it's a new season, even though it's not. Again, that's not how a series like FMA Brotherhood works. I think they do the same thing for One Piece, and One Piece definitely does not work that way. One Piece is sorted out by arcs and sagas, And considering the variants of episodes that can be in an arc or a saga, One Piece really has no way of being organized any kind of properly by Netflix. Um, but yeah, so I don't know what they're doing um, going forward, but I'm guessing based on this, we're not going to get another batch of episodes this year, but we probably will get one early next year. I would say it's possible in January, but I I could see being February as well. We are getting a special next month, um, in November. Though actually, this is going up in November, isn't it? I'm recording this obviously in October, but yeah, this video is going up in November. So as of when you're seeing this, this month there's going to be a special for this series. It's a holiday special. Um, so obviously I'll be reacting to that too. That'll probably be labeled on Netflix as Chapter 3, but it's just a special. And I'm going to probably label it on the title of the reaction by the name of the special. So we'll go from there. um, but yeah, so there's definitely been some continuity, definitely been some stuff set up, and I'm just wondering how this series of 8 episodes is going to end, how this batch will end, because I feel like it's not going to be like this huge climactic ending, right? I don't feel like it's going to be worked like that. Um, it might leave off on a cliffhanger. I mean, that's possible, but I don't see it being anything super huge. But I mean, I don't know for sure. I mean, you never know, right? Either way, we are just going to get this started from here, though. And we're going to see what this penultimate episode of Batch 1 has in store for us. So, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black, then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, so this was a very important episode, actually. Even though everything was resolved in the end, and even though Zipp wasn't able to actually put the blame on Misty after all, nonetheless, this was a very important episode. It continued the major plots of things pretty well, without too much divergence from that. That was something that really wasn't in this. This was all entirely centered around the major plots, mainly around Misty trying to take the lantern and, finding the lantern. It was all centered around that. So it doesn't seem to directly continue off of the last one. Like, I think it's a different night, but we kind of see a different scenario playing out here, basically. We see Zipp catches someone using the lantern in the garden, and the next day the lantern's missing. So they have to find it. Zipp sees it in the, or sees where it was supposed to be in the garden, but Pip has found it at that point and moved it. Because she likes seeing Zipp utilizing her passion for detective work and seeing how it makes her cutie mark glow. So she is making sure that Zipp can have this while keeping the lantern safe herself. The trail is supposed to lead Zipp to Pip, but instead everything leads to Misty, which makes sense because Misty's the one who actually did try to steal it. And technically she did. She did steal it, but she buried it in the garden. I'm still thinking, like, why? Like maybe she couldn't make the trip back to Opaline's castle that night. Maybe she didn't want to travel at night or something. But still, it's like, why couldn't you have taken it with you and still left Maritime Bay and gone somewhere else in the meantime? It just seems like a weird decision to bury it that close to the castle and everything. Or the Bright House, not castle. Bury it that close to the Bright House. It just seems like a weird decision. But Misty, as we can see, is not always like the most put together. And I don't mean that as an insult or anything. She's genuinely not. She has a hard time um, doing the most basic of things because she only knows so much. She's been raised by Opaline and is like raised to think Opaline is the victim in all of this, and that everything Opaline says and does is correct. And so she doesn't really know anything else. She doesn't know how to do things for herself, doesn't know how to take care of herself. She's been completely controlled her entire life by Opaline. So she likely doesn't understand basic like planning either. She only goes with what Opaline told her, and Opaline's like, don't come back without the lantern. And so she thought like, okay, if I'm not going to travel at night, let's bury it here, because things are buried here anyways. It's a garden, so no one will suspect that. And so it's like that was probably her mindset going into this. She's also a very naive character in general. It's not even just how she was raised, but Misty is shown to be very naive and not really to think things through too much. And again, it's not an insult on Misty. I mean, Misty's one of my favorite characters in this. I'm speaking from the standpoint of what we see. She's not the most forward-thinking pony. She's just not. And there's other ponies like that too. I would say Izzy is the same way for obvious reasons. And hell, I would even say Pip is that way. And Pip, you guys know, is my favorite. So it's definitely not meant as an insult. It's just something I noticed. So yeah, she probably that's what I'm thinking. She probably just wasn't thinking about how it would be found before she came back and everything, and just it probably didn't cross her mind. So Zipp goes on a case, uses her high tech detective gear that she's been working on, which, like I said in the reaction, I love that there's this higher technology now. And let's delve into what else I said in the reaction about that. I noted how there's a lot of people who aren't a big fan of that. There's a lot of like brony tubers, I guess you would call them, who I've seen some reviews for this series without obviously going into spoilers or anything. But they've been saying stuff like the inclusion of stuff like smartphones it's throwing them out of it. It's it's hurting the immersion for them because they're so used to Friendship is Magic not having highly advanced technology like that. Because they're so used to it being a little more like fantasy, you know, little more fantasy with less like, you know, real world technologies and stuff. The inclusion of that in this series is throwing them off. And I get what they're saying, but my thing with that is, again, as I stated in the reaction, this is like kind of blatantly stated to take place a long ass time after the events of G4, of Friendship is Magic. Because in the movie, again, I've said this before, but they refer to Friendship is Magic's era as ancient Equestria. And if it's referred to as ancient, it's not going to be any time within like even hundreds of years. I think it would have to at least be 1,000, at least. And it could be upwards of 2,000. I believe that's entirely possible too. I'd say it's somewhere between 1 and 2,000 years since the events of Friendship is Magic. Um, and I would say, like, since even the events of the flash forward at the end of Friendship is Magic, where it shows all of them as older, because it wasn't that much longer. It wasn't that farther into the future, because you could see, like, even though they were all older, all of the main six, I mean, save for Twilight because of being an alicorn, all of the main six outside of that were still alive. They were just older. So it would be within a normal lifespan still. So it wouldn't have been that long. But still, like, over 1,000 years later is a long ass time. And things change within that time. Things are going to be different. And that includes with technology. And it's not the first time we've seen this kind of stuff. We've seen this since the movie. Like, Zephyr Heights is this big beacon for technology. And some places in Equestria still seem to be more like what we recognize from Friendship is Magic. Maritime Bay is closer, but, like, Bridlewood is much more classic. Yeah, outside of, having the DDR type machine. But even that was done in a way to where it's not actually high technology, if you remember. Like, that was actually done in a way where it's like, oh, these animals are running these wheels behind the machine and everything. It's not actually, like, high tech. So Bridlewood is probably the biggest example of classic MLP, classic Friendship is Magic style still existing. But other parts of Equestria have advanced. Maritime Bay and Zephyr Heights have advanced. They're definitely much more into a modern technological age. And I would expect that. If we're going to have a series take place this long after the original, it's not going to be like, it wouldn't be like fantasy-like anymore. It would have more technology to it. It wouldn't make sense for it to still be all like olden days and be just the same as Friendship is Magic in that regard. I don't understand the complaints about high-end technology being in this. I think it's not only a good idea, but I think it's kind of a necessary one just to make this work. And I think it's integrated fine. It doesn't feel unnatural for the current world of Equestria. It's all meshed in properly. And I think that it's good. So yeah. But yeah, we see Zipp use her technology to hunt down the clues and everything. She ends up tracking Misty with it. And she actually confronts her, which actually surprised me. Because it's like, I actually didn't expect, and I'm saying actually a lot now, but I didn't expect her to confront her about it. To make a full-on accusation, and to be right, even. But she was. Misty never admitted to it, because Pip stopped Zipp beforehand. But it was on the verge. Like, I think Misty would have done so if Pip had not interfered. But I think an even bigger note of this episode, surprisingly enough, is what Opaline said to Misty at the end. She was saying, without me, you'd have nothing and no one. You'd have no home, you'd have no friends, and it's like, it is very much Like it's not even really being that subtle about it, but it's very much telling us at this point that Misty is going to uh, turn over to the good side, which wasn't like really that surprising or subtle before, but it's much less subtle now. A line like that tells us that Misty will have all these things. She will have a home. She will have friends. She will have her cutie mark. All of that will be coming to her. Specifically, we know this because Opaline is insisting that that stuff will not come to her otherwise. And granted, this is, like I said in the reaction, is a form of control. It is Opaline controlling Misty and keeping her loyal. Because I think that would be Opaline's biggest fear right now. That Misty betrays her. Because if Misty betrays her and turns over to the good side before she can get her power back, then she doesn't have anyone to do her work for her anymore. She would have to do it herself. And I don't know if she has the power and ability to be willing to do that, or just the desire to be willing to do that. But yeah. So I think that would be the biggest hitch in Opaline's plan right now, if Misty does turn over to the good side. Which is why she's doing everything in her power, clearly, to stop that. Like, again, it's not even subtle that she is actively manipulating Misty into not just continuing to follow her, but to be as loyal as possible. Which is why she is hanging all these things over her head like a carrot on a stick. It's something that she feels she needs to do. And Misty doesn't know better. She doesn't know that Opaline is in the wrong and that she's the bad guy. She's all Misty really knows. But you see throughout these episodes, as Misty starts to be around the other ponies, she starts to experience actual friendship. She starts to experience some kindness. And she gets to experience what it's like to just live for others and for fun. And not in a toxic way, living for others, I should say. Because technically, Misty is living for others right now, but you know what I mean. But yeah. So it's making it more clear than ever that she's going to turn. And again, we kind of already knew this. It's not a surprise. It's not like a big twist or anything. It doesn't seem to have come out of nowhere. It's just, it's more clear than ever. And I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. I don't think they're going to wait till like the very end of this season, like episodes like late 20s or whatnot, or mid 20s or whatnot. I don't think they're going to wait till that point. I think it's going to happen probably by mid-season, I would say. I don't think it's going to happen necessarily by next episode, but I would say by around episode 12 or so, maybe. I could be wrong. I could be. But that's my guess as of now. But yeah, I very much enjoyed this episode. This was a really good one. There was a song added in for funsies. And a lot of these songs that I've heard seem to have like a full version. Not all of them, but a few of them have. So I wonder if this song has a full version. I'm going to have to look that up. Either way, tell me your thoughts on this episode of My Little Pony Make Your Mark down in the comments below. And thank you all so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.